Hey guys, Tony back again, Horror in Todge. Hope you're all well. Sunday afternoon here in the UK, and I'm going to be doing a tag video today. So I thought this one up off the top of my head. I've been watching a lot of horror films recently from, past decades, from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and I thought, it's probably already been done before, but I thought, why not do a hundred years of horror in cinema tag? So basically, what I'm going to do is go through from the 1920s up until 2020. You know, I'm going to go through my favourite film from each decade. So 1920s, 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000 and 2010s. So there'll be 10 films altogether, 100 years. Just my favourite film really from each era. Now I know it's really hard to do because some of the films I've left off, but I've just gone for stuff that is maybe not the greatest films made in that era, but the films that have sort of resonated with me most, and I enjoy the most, or I think they're well done, and they're maybe symbolic to the horror sort of horror film industry and sort of the impact they've had on people's lives. But this is just my opinion, guys. So, like I say, I'm going to get straight on with it. But if you guys want to, do this tag, feel free. Like I say, it might have already been done, this sort of thing. It probably has. But yeah, it's quite a hard one to do because, like I say, over 100 years. Sometimes I'm not the biggest sort of uh, fan of like silent cinema and that, but I have watched a few, and I've watched a few from each genre. I know everyone wouldn't have, so it's quite a hard one. But if you still want to do the tag, do it. And just if you haven't seen anything from the 40s or 50s to do with horror, just leave it out if you want. It doesn't matter about that. You can just say I don't really, haven't really seen many from that era, but you can still do it. You still go along. I like watching the tag videos. I do, and I think this one will be quite good. So we'll go straight into, guys, for my 1920s film, and it's a film from 1920, and it's a pretty recent watch. I've done this for my 31 days of horror, and so some of these films that'll crop up might be because I've watched them, recent, and they've sort of stuck with me. So this is why I'm going for this film, and it's a film called Dear Gollum from 1920, directed by Paul Wagner and Carl Bose, and it's a silent film, obviously from the 20s, so it's 100 years old, just over, and it follows these sort of this rabbi and this this Jewish community, and they're going to get put out of the city by the king or something, and it's a bit like a Frankenstein sort of creation. He sort of makes this golem to sort of protect his people, and the golem goes a bit wrong, and he starts to rampage around this town and kill people and set fires, and he's a real weird looking character, but really enjoyed this one. I thought, even though it was silent, it kept me captivated. The music was really good, and just something about that silent cinema era that is like a little bit eerie. I don't know, it just had that feel about it, and I thought it was a great film. And like I say, the music and stuff, cinematography for 100 years old is brilliant. So yeah, I'm going to go from a film from the 1920s, guys. I'm going to go Dear Gollum. Going in with my 1930s for pick, I'm going to go for a film from 1931, and it's like the universal sort of, I suppose, take on Frankenstein. So this really resonates with me. Boris Karloff as Frankenstein is unbelievable. Now, this isn't a very long film. It's only probably about 70 minutes long. And we all know the story of Frankenstein. The scientist makes a human, tries to make a human out of body parts, and something goes a bit wrong, and But one scene sticks with me in this, from when the little girl's chucking the petals in the water, the black and white scene, and Frankenstein's there, and she's sort of all innocent, and that scene. It's just, I don't know, Boris Karloff as Frankenstein, and I've done a lot of like research on Boris Karloff before, and he's like, he was in the 30s. Women and stuff were terrified of this. Obviously now it's like a PG or almost like a comedy, but then he terrified audiences, and You know, women when they used to come out of the cinema walking in the middle of the road because they don't go on the side, thinking Frankenstein, Boris Karloff was going to get them. So, yeah, really, really great film from the 30s. I love Frankenstein, my favourite 30s film. Right, so going into the 1940s now is a film from 1944, directed by Lewis Allen. Really cool film if you haven't seen it. It's on the Criterion Collection, called The Uninvited. Um, so this is a straight up sort of ghost, you know, spooky story. Essentially about, I think it's a brother and sister, what I can remember rightly, buy this big old house on the English coastline, so I don't know, Bournemouth or somewhere. And they get it at a really good price. I think, well, you know, why is it so cheap? And it's because obviously it's haunted on Maleven, and there's these spirits, and there's some really cool effects in this. It's got that really, you know, obviously it's black and white, really cool atmosphere. Um, and you've got like doors slamming, you know, these fires coming up, and it's just really weird, really these strange noises. And yeah, you know, you've got all the candles burning, and you know these white shapes appearing. You know, good effects for the time for the 40s. I thought it's a real creepy atmosphere, great acting, and yeah, just a brilliant film from the 40s. I love The Uninvited. I just think it's a great ghost story, guys. So if you haven't seen that one, definitely recommend. From the 1950s now, guys, getting on to that. And it's a film from 1958. I'm sure you've heard me talk about this a lot of times. And it's Dracula from 1958, or the horror Dracula, you know, the Hammer horror, first Dracula, directed by Terence Fisher. Obviously stars Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, two of the my favourite actors of all time. And yeah, just a Dracula story, you know. Um, Peter Cushing has to go and rescue this guy who's sort of trapped by Dracula. But some of the special effects in this film for the 50s, like I've said before, at the end where you get the fight scene between Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, and he sort of gets the candlesticks and Christopher Lee starts to melt and stuff at the end. And there's just some great, I don't know, it was great cinematography, great feel about it, gothic feel, and just two of the best on you know, on screen chemistries ever in Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. I think, you know, they were fabulous, and some other good actors in this, and some great sort of when Dracula walks down the stairs at the start and says "Welcome to my house" and stuff. It's just, yeah, just classic gothic, yeah, Hammer horror. So I love that film, 1958. So that's my 1950s pick, guys. My 1960s pick is a pretty recent watch. I watched it maybe about nearly a year ago, probably about 10 months ago, probably last February for the first time. Filmed by Roman Polanski from 1965, Repulsion. And this one stuck with me a little bit. It was like great cinematography. I understand why, you know, people think, you know, Polanski is one of the greatest sort of directors and cinematographer, you know, of any sort of generation. It's a great story. It's about this woman called Carol, played by Catherine Deneuve, I think her name was, and she sort of got this. I don't know. It's like not a disease. It's like a fear of men, almost. She just doesn't like men, and she's a bit, you know, off-putting. And she lives with her sister in this apartment, and her sister goes away with her boyfriend, and she's a bit, you know, don't do it. She's a bit, she doesn't like the idea. She's a bit jealous, and sort of when she's sort of on her own in this apartment, this resentment towards men, it starts to send her crazy, and all this. I'm not gonna spoil it for you guys if you haven't seen it, but there's some, you know, great stuff in this. It was great acting. This woman in like I say, in a room on her own or in an apartment, and you know she's just, you know, her head's going, and there's some like killings going on. It's a really brilliant film if you haven't seen it. Like I said, the cinematography and stuff, the acting is fantastic. The direction of the film, I just really enjoyed it. So it's just like there's lots of great films from the 60s that I love, but this one stuck in my mind. So I've had to go with Repulsion for my 1960s film. Great film if you haven't seen it. Definitely get on it. My 1970 film from the 70s, not 1970. But there's a film probably you'll all know because it's my favourite film of all time, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974, directed by Tobe Hooper. It's just a masterpiece. And this film, got a lot of, is it violent and stuff, which it is, but there isn't much blood or anything. There doesn't have to be. It's just the tension and terror in this is, up there with the greatest films ever. It's just, just the way it's made, the griminess. I love it. Leatherface, probably one of the greatest villains ever. And you've sort of got a bit of heartwarming feeling towards Leatherface almost, because of obviously he's got some sort of mental problems, and then the family are obviously interbred, and it's just the Sawyer family. They get these. You've all heard of the bloody Texas Chainsaw Massacre story. Basically, these guys break down in the desert, and then the Sawyer family with Leatherface and co come after them to try and sort of, obviously the cannibals, to eat them, and they're just vicious family. But great film, I absolutely love it. It's my favourite film of all time. I can watch it any time. So that's my film from 1970s. But there is lots of great films from each one of these eras. I'm not going to mention them because I'd have to go through too many. So it's just the one I like the most. And you just got to do it. It's hard to do, to be fair. But I think the 70s and 80s are my two favourite decades when I thought about this for horror film. My 1980s film, guys, from the 1980s, is a film, anyone who knows me will know this as well. There's lots of great films from the 80s. I love it. It's probably my favourite decade. But this one sticks with me from being a young age, and I absolutely love the franchise. So it's A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. From 1987, this one. Directed by, what was his name again? Chris Russell, is it? Something like that. And obviously, Wes Craven, the first film. But I think this one's got better acting because you've got like Patricia Arquette's character, you've got Lawrence Fishburne. And I just think the guys in the mental hospital have got great chemistry. Excuse me. Great chemistry and great... you've got these guys who from Elm Street who were on the in a mental institution because of Freddy and these dreams, and then Freddy sort of comes to this mental institution and starts picking them off, but they sort of team together and get these powers. It's just on the cusp of when Freddy's sort of serious and just starting to get a little bit comedic, so it's a good mix. It's not the really comedic Freddy, but it's not the really dark one we saw in part 1 and 2. He's got some greatest one-liners in history in this film, and it's just nostalgic. Obviously, it's not the greatest film made in the 80s or anything like that. You've got all sorts of great films from the 80s, The Thing and all sorts. But for me, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 just simplifies 80s and my childhood. I just absolutely love it. So that's my 1980s film. A film from the 1990s, guys. There was loads of cool films in the 90s too. I really enjoyed that area. That's another one where I was growing up. Obviously, I was born in 84. So, but the film I'm going to go for is a film from 1992, directed by Bernard Rose. I suppose you know it now. One of the best slashers of all time in my eyes. Candyman. Just think it's absolutely brilliant. The score in this, some of the greatest music in cinema history. I love it. Love the score. Like I say, it's a story from Clive Barker, but directed by Bernard Rose, like I said. You got Tony Todd in this as Candyman, who's absolutely terrifying. Virginia Madison's character is great in this too. Basically about this student who sort of goes undercover, trying to dig up stuff on the Candyman. Says his name 5 times in the mirror. Candyman comes back and starts laying siege to this sort of town or estate at Bikini Green. But it's just brilliant film. Like I say, the music, the cinematography, everything is spot on in this. I just really love it. Really got a great 90s feel, like I say, 1992. Just an absolutely, pleasure to watch. You can watch that anytime. So, film from the 90s, guys, The Candyman. So, from the 2000s now, so from 2000 to 2010, this was quite a hard one because there is lots and lots of great films in this. But I'm going to go with a film from 2009. One I watch pretty often, to be fair, and the atmosphere has got a feel of an older movie. Directed by Ty West, The House of the Devil. Um, this doesn't get as much love as what I'd like people to give it because, obviously, like I say, it's really slow build. It's about this girl who sort of needs some money. She's a student and she babysits his house. She looks after this house and there's a grandma in there. They say it's an old woman who she's looking after, but she doesn't need to go into her. She just needs to make sure that the house and everything's safe while these two guys go out for a meal or something. And it's just a really great atmosphere and stuff's happening. And you're like, what is happening here? Like I say, it's got a real throwback feel to it, almost a 60s, 70s, 80s feel with some Jallo moments and some great, I don't know, just some great. I'm not going to spoil it for you guys and give away the story because it happens all at the end and it sort of ties together. So I'm not going to say what it is, but it's just a great sort of satanic story. It's got, yeah, some great gore in it as well. And just the atmosphere and the tension in this is bang on. So that's why it gets into my 2000s film, guys. I just think it's absolutely brilliant. Um, yeah, so The House of the Devil is my 2000s film. So 2010s, so from 2010 to 2020, obviously. Film I'm going to go for, guys. I've got loads of films I love, like, you know, Hereditary and just some brilliant, absolutely brilliant films. Climax from Gaspar Noé. But this one has sort of stuck with me for months now, years almost since I've seen it. I always give it a little thought sometimes if I'm thinking about films. And it's filmed by Yorgos Lanthimos from 2017 called The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Now, I know some people might say it's not really a horror film, but it's a horror drama. And the elements in this one at the end, you will know this film has got probably one of the most horror in it I could ever imagine. It's more than a monster or anything like that. It's just so psychological. It's just, yeah, just a brilliant film. You got Colin Farrell in this, Nicole Kidman, but the star of the movie is Barry Cohen's character Martin. He just plays this guy, a young lad who's meant to be, I don't know, a teenager, and you've got Colin Farrell who's like a heart surgeon, and he's sort of, you see at the start he's got this relationship with this boy, and you're trying to piece together, why is he sort of talking to this boy and giving him presents and stuff, and he's sort of working out, and then something tragic happens to his family. I would say Nicole Kidman's got two kids, a boy and a girl, great big suburban house, really well off, you know, and you piece together going through the film what's happening with Martin, his character, his family, and I don't want to give it away. You have to watch it, but it just the feeling of this film given me, I don't know, it just yeah, it just stuck with me, guys. You'll know what I mean if you've seen it, but yeah, the music, the score, the lighting in this, and the cinematography is just bang on from, you know, A24 film. It's just absolutely fantastic, and it's just stuck with me, guys. So yep, The Killing of a Sacred Deer is my last pick from 2010 to 2020. So yeah, I hope you like that one, guys. Like I say, this is a tag video. It's open to everyone. So I don't know everyone's taste in horror, so I don't know if everyone's watched stuff. So, but the people who I think do watch quite a lot of horror, who I know and I speak to, I will tag. So you got Bryn at Horror Hands. I know he's watched a lot more horror than I have, to be fair. So I'll tag you, mate. Horrific Nightmares JM, you know, he's a lot older than me, so he would have watched a vast range of films. So I'll tag you, mate. Who else we got? We got Mondo Chelavec movies, John. If you want to join in with this, mate, if you've watched a lot of horror from, you know, all the different decades I've mentioned, you know, you can sort of do a video if you want to. Andrew Balliner, the same. You know, mate, if you want to do this, you know, like I say, you don't have to do every decade if you don't want, but just thought it's quite a cool tag. And then I haven't seen him around on YouTube, but Mark of Horror, I know you've seen a lot of horror, mate, a lot more than I have. So, you know, if you want to do that, but anyone, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, but Anyone else, guys, if I missed you out, I'm sorry, but everyone's tagged anyway. So if you want to do a response, guys, get on it. But I just thought it was quite a cool little video. I hope you liked it. Get in the comments, guys. Tell me what you think of this and what you think of my choices. Do your choices. If you haven't got a channel or anything, make your list in the comments, guys, if you want. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I've been Tony. I will catch you all for the next video, guys. Thanks a lot for watching.